Welcome to Chamber of Horrors. I am your host, Mercy Desdemona, and in this episode we discuss the picture, The Stepfather, which came out in 1987. This film isn't exactly good, but it's not bad either, and happens to be one of my favorites, despite the goofs. There's a lot of goofiness in this movie, but we'll get to that later. First off, we follow this gentleman over here, who ends up going nuts and murdering his wife and children. We then find out that he's a master of disguise and carries disguises in his suitcase even, and changes everything from his contact lenses to his hair and everything to change his appearance and start a new life in a town not so far away from where he murdered his family. He ends up marrying a widow who has a teen daughter, and the teen daughter is a little sketched out by this man because, let's just face it, he's odd. I do think, though, that the actor that they chose to play him was a perfect fit. He has a really creepy vibe, and he portrayed the psychopath very, very well, so that is a plus. Now, we also get to know this character, which is supposedly the man's brother-in-law, and it seems like this character kind of got written in either quickly or they forgot they wrote him in because he spends most of his time driving around like a maniac, getting angry at nuns and children crossing the street, and then he makes this big deal about finding this guy who murdered his sister, but instead of, being able to get revenge or anything like that, he quickly meets his demise. And honestly, it feels like that they just simply forgot that they wrote this guy in. That's just the vibe that I get. It does add for a little comedic value to it if you find that kind of weird. I did, for sure, after watching the movie twice to see, hey, did I catch that properly? So the daughter tells her therapist that she's not feeling right. This guy's kind of shady, and her mother's not listening to her. She thinks she's just angry because of her father passing away and typical teenage stuff. Well, the therapist starts seeing a vibe and he's picking up on it, so he figured that, hey, your stepdad is a real estate agent. I'm gonna pretend to go buy a house. So the therapist did so, and he was trying to get a feel for this gentleman, the stepfather. And the problem is, he kind of screwed up a bit. Um, the stepdad didn't know what the doctor looked like. He always sat outside when the daughter went in for her therapy session. So it could have worked well, but the guy kind of acted too much like a therapist instead of just a guy looking to buy a house. So the stepdad was able to put two and two together, and unfortunately, a therapist man meets his demise. Now, with that starting, he's the stepdad is noticing that people are realizing that there's something weird about him. So he starts going into like these psycho things, like psycho eyes, like I got going on. Yeah, he does that a lot in the movie. But, he starts realizing, oh crap, so he starts going to look in another town. He gets a house next to another single lady. He's just planning to go from town to town to town as master of disguise and just, being a stepdaddy to everybody. Um, but the wife, that he has back home calls his office and they tell her that he no longer works there. Fishy, right? Well, apparently he cleaned out his office and didn't tell his wife because, hey, he's planning to go to the next one. He's planning to get rid of his current wife and stepdaughter like he did his original family. The thing is, with this movie, it's perfectly paced. You get to see the story really easily. It's not one where you have to look too deep into the story. I do think the slow progression of him going from, you know, thinking everything's okay to going into madness was portrayed really, really well. I am confused how these wives didn't notice that his eye color changed or his hair changed. Because, I mean, like, did he use super glue? I don't understand how like they wouldn't notice like their gentleman is changing so much. I mean, I don't know. I think if you're married to someone, you would notice these sort of things, but hey, I don't know. Whatever, none of my business. But I do think that this is a decent film to put on when you've got friends who may not be into as horror as deep as you, or just for something, you don't know what you want to watch, so you put on one of these movies. That's the vibe that I get from this film. I did enjoy it. I hope you enjoy this episode of Chamber of Horrors. I'm hoping to be back every weekend with a new episode of Chamber of Horrors, technology willing. And next week we will tackle The Stepfather 2, which came out, I believe, in 1989. That one has a different vibe, but we will talk about that then. Big shout out to Josh and Emily and Steph and everybody that came to the live streams in the past. We will be doing more of those. Bear with me. Gotta update some tech. On that note, I will see you guys later. Bye.